Councilmember Hayes.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering us today. We thank you for the gift of today. Continue to pour out your blessings upon our city. Please give this council the gift of wisdom and right judgment as we continue to lead the citizens of Tiffin. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Hayes.
Here.
Councilmember Herniman.
Here.
Councilmember Kaler.
Here.
Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Reesner.
Here.
Councilmember Snee.
Here.
And Councilmember Thacker.
Here. Let the record show that 6 of 7 council members are present. Are there any deletions, amendments to the July 17th regular and committee of the whole meeting minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will stand as presented. We're now under committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. Finance Committee was held Friday, July 19th, 2024 in council chambers. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss Mayor's request for legislation 24-34, funding for the skating rink, Mayor's request for legislation 24-35, the FEMA fire grant, and any other business that may become before council. Attending were committee members Kevin Reesner, Aaron Jones, and John Kaler. Also attending were Mayor Lee Wilkinson, Finance Director Kathy Kaufman, City Administrator Nick Dutro, and Law Director Zach Fowler. Reesner called the meeting to order at 5:17 p.m. There are tentative plans to install an iceless skating rink at Oakley Park, which will be operational annually from fall through late winter. The rink will consist of interlocking vinyl PVC pieces and will include skates and a storage rack. This request aims to cover the funding, not yet secured. It will take some time to order, ship, and assemble that and have it ready by early fall. Approximately $70,000 has been donated so far, but additional funding is required to meet the total project cost of approximately $110,000. Current request for approval is $40,000, with ongoing efforts to secure further donations to reduce this amount. Kaler moved to have the law director draft legislation to authorize the city to appropriate funding for mayor's request for legislation 24-34, seconded by Jones, and the motion carried unanimously. Next, we talked about the FEMA fire grant. It's the $265,050 to purchase 30 air tanks, 30 self-contained breathing apparatuses, and 6 face pieces. Dutro noted the city would need to purchase this anyhow, and the fire chief did a nice job seeking out the grant. There's a brief, Jones moved to have the law director prepare legislation to proceed with the fire grant, and it was seconded by Kaler, and the motion carried unanimously. No further business. The meeting adjourned at 5:32 p.m.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Law and Community Planning, Councilmember Kaler.
No report, Madam President.
Is there anyone from the Materials and Equipment Committee? Any report?
No report, Madam President.
Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilmember Hayes.
No report, Madam President.
Recreation and Public Property, Councilmember Snee.
No report, Madam President.
Okay, and I do have a report for Streets, Sidewalks, and Sewers. A Streets, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee meeting was held on July 29th, 2024 at 5:15 p.m. on site at 34 Front Street, Tiffin, Ohio. Attending were committee members Cheyenne Thacker, Aaron Jones, Scott Horniman, Kevin Reesner, and Dennis Snee, along with Law Director Zachary Fowler, Mayor Lee Wilkinson, City Administrator Nick Dutro, and City Engineer Matt Watson. Thacker called the meeting to order. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss alley vacation petition number 2024-03 and any other business that may come before them. Thacker read the responses of department heads regarding the potential alley vacation. Watson would request a future sewer easement to be maintained over the limits of this alley. Currently, the city of Tiffin is in the planning phase for our Ohio EPA mandated long-term control plan. The alley being proposed for vacation is within the limits of this project. There's also a fence in the alleyway that council members would request be moved if the alley vacation goes forward. Stay motion to have the law director prepare legislation to vacate the alley. Reesner seconded the motion. The motion passed 5-0. With no further business, the committee adjourned the first part of the meeting at 5:44 p.m. The committee reconvened, at 5:34 p.m. The committee reconvened on the same date with the same individuals aforesaid in council chambers at 5:45 p.m. Thacker called the meeting to order. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss mayor's request for legislation 24-32 and 24-33, as well as any other business that may come before them. Dutro gave the committee information regarding mayor's request for legislation 24-33. Currently, a city sewer is located on the private property of that property owner. The owner is agreeable to amending the easement. Reesner motioned to have the law director prepare legislation. Horniman seconded the motion. The motion passed 5-0. Watson gave the committee information regarding mayor's request for legislation 24-32. The main ordinance updates are regarding chapters 902, excavations, 905, sewer design, construction and connections, and 936, small cell facilities in the right-of-way. Jones motioned to have the law director prepare legislation. Horniman seconded the motion. The motion passed 5-0. With no further business, the committee adjourned at 6:20 p.m. And Economic and Development and Downtown Planning, Councilmember Horniman.
No report, Madam President.
Okay, we are now, does anybody see the need to schedule a committee of the whole? Okay, we're now under the reports of the officers. His Honor, Mayor Lee Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a reminder for those of you here, the Educators Breakfast that some of you are attending, the original published start date time was 8 o'clock. This Thursday, August 8th. But the doors open at 7 a.m. and they start serving breakfast at about 7:30. The program starts at 7:30. Breakfast lines open at 7:15. So make a note there if you had the time wrong on your planner. The Pet Walk of Fame stars, did I write that incorrectly? I did. The Pet Walk of Fame stars should be coming up this week. So for any pet owners out there who have purchased stars, please come and get those picked up. If they're not picked up by Friday, then we'll have a crew coming out to get those picked up, and then we'll let you know where you can get those picked up from. Saturday, I went on a motorcycle ride, say Hogs for Dogs, to benefit the Humane Society. That's what I did all day Saturday. Political sign season is coming soon. Please keep them out of the boulevard. That's a reminder for all of our residents. Keep them out of the boulevard. Street paving is complete for the year, but sewer work continues, so there will still be utility work going on in the streets, so please watch out for those city workers and those utility workers. Also, the notice went out about the North Sandusky Street striping between Hudson and Hall Streets to improve driver and pedestrian safety, and that'll take place later this fall. And I do have a guest here from CASA House, the appointed special advocates, and Michelle Hess is going to tell us a little bit about that.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope we're all doing well tonight. So my name is Michelle Hess. I'm here from CASA of Seneca, Sandusky, and Wyandot Counties. I'm the Tri-County Assistant Communications Coordinator. Wear a couple different hats. You know, the nonprofit world, you gotta roll with the punches and fill in where you need to. So I wanted to talk to you guys about what CASA is. I know I came here last year when our volunteer training was coming up, but I know we have some new members, so I wanted just to remind everyone what CASA is and go from there. So what is CASA? CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. It's a nationwide program, so we're in every state, just not in every county, depending on the juvenile court judge there. It all depends on if they want to allow that volunteer program into that county. So luckily in Seneca, Sandusky, and Wyandot counties, our judges are very CASA friendly and love to have our program help them out to make the best decisions they can for the kids that they're making life-altering decisions for. So our program trains people in the community, just everyday average Joe people, to advocate for abused, neglected children in court. So we're actually advocating for children that are victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, abandonment, and violence. So really traumatizing things that have happened in these kids' lives. We are trying to be there to, I guess, not correct those issues, but get them on the right path so that they can become positive adults one day that are really getting involved in the community and putting the right foot forward. So I usually have a video, but I was told internet here may be spotty, so we're gonna skip that from now.
We'll send this out to all the members so you guys can watch that video later. Cool.
So our mission is we believe children deserve a safe, permanent, and supportive environment in which to live. And how we hope to accomplish that is we're drawing on community resources, connecting these families and these kids to different services in the community. We're making those recommendations to the court on what we feel is in their best interest, and we hope to be able to appoint a volunteer to every child that the court assigns us to. Unfortunately, we are a volunteer program, so we don't have enough volunteers sometimes. This hits more in Sandusky County. We get most of our cases in that county, and if we don't have the volunteers to appoint, we then have to return that case to the court, and a guardian ad litem attorney will be appointed. So some of our statistics in 2023, we served 257 children with just 51 volunteers, and that's across all 3 counties. And since 1990, that was the inception of our program here in Seneca County, we have helped more than 4,700 kids in these 3 counties. So we've made quite the impact, and we are very proud of that. So how CASA becomes involved in the first place. So Children's Services will get a call or a report that something's going on with a family, that there's a concern. Children's Services has their process, whether they screen that out or investigate that. So if they decide to investigate that concern, they're gonna go and meet with the family, figure out what's going on and if that concern is actually valid. If it is valid, they're going to try to offer some services to that family to alleviate that concern. Say if the family doesn't have enough food, that was the concern. And Children's Services, the caseworker goes into the home, checks the fridge, checks pantries, and there isn't enough food, they're going to try to connect them with some services. Here are the local food banks. I will bring out food out to you guys and just try to alleviate that concern however they can. And they're going to keep checking up on the family, making sure that that concern does get alleviated. If through 90 days, 60 days working with that family, that concern is not being alleviated, or if the safety of the child is becoming a concern, or parents are not being cooperative with Children's Services, and again, that safety of the child is a concern, they're going to file a complaint with juvenile court, and they're going to get that family in front of the juvenile court judge and try to get some court-ordered services. And because they do that, they can get their hands on way more services to help that family. So that's when we get a call. The judge will give us a call and say, hey, we have this case. There's these 3 kiddos located around this area. The court hearing's tomorrow. Can you get a volunteer here? We'd love to have a volunteer on the case. So that's basically all we know. When we're walking into that courtroom is what the kids' names are, kind of what the concern is, and we go from there. So the judge, when they get that complaint from Children's Services, has the option to either appoint a CASA volunteer or appoint a attorney guardian ad litem. So I wanted to point out some differences of what that means. So if the judge decides to appoint an attorney guardian ad litem, they are an attorney, so they are paid, and they are paid attorney rates. Depending on what county you're in, that number fluctuates, but average paid about $60 an hour for their services, and that's paid through to the tax dollars as well. They go through about 12 hours of training to get their GAL certificate to be able to advocate for children in court, and they, through their, I don't want to say regulations, but their rules that they're following, they're only required to see the child once throughout the life of the case. So when a CASA is appointed as the guardian ad litem, we use volunteers, so we're free. And we save thousands of tax dollars every year just by having volunteers do this position. We have a very thorough training. We go through 30 hours of training with our volunteers, and I'll go into a little bit later what all that covers. we require, or National CASA requires, our volunteers see the child once a month throughout the life of their case. So they're really developing a relationship with these kids to know them in order to know what's best for them, and then they can advocate for that in court. If you really don't know someone, you don't know what's truly best for them. And if you guys have ever volunteered for something, you know that you have a lot of passion for it. You're not in it for the paycheck. You're not doing it just because your boss says you need to do it. You saw that there was a need, and you are just so overcome with the need to accomplish that and really see the positive effect that you can have in the community, and especially in kids' lives. That is an amazing feeling for our volunteers. So once our volunteers are appointed to the case, they're going to investigate what was going on, what's currently going on, and what can we do for this family to get them on the right track. So they're collecting police records, medical records, school records, counseling records, you name it, anything that child's name is on, we are able to get access to. The judge gives us a court appointment letter, so HIPAA laws don't apply. We're able to access all that confidential information on the child to gain that perspective of what's going on, because the judge is only going to know and be able to decide based off of the information that they're provided. And if you've ever been in a courtroom, you got one side and you got another side, and in juvenile cases, you also have children's services side. So each one has their own perspective on it. So having the CASA volunteer guardian ad litem there, they kind of are the unbiased person that says, hey, I just collected all these records, here it is, make your decision. We're not trying to sway you either way. They have their own recommendations, but it's ultimately up to the judge what they feel is in the best interest. So they're also, on top of collecting all those records, we're visiting that child or children in that case, and anyone involved in that child's life. So we're talking to parents, we're talking to grandparents, teachers, neighbors, friends. We are not limited in that. If that person is important to that child, we're gonna find that contact information and be able to reach out to them to, again, get this full colored picture of what's going on in this child's life. So once that investigation work is done, our volunteers are putting all that information into a written report and submitting that to the judge. And the information that they're including in that report is the updates on parents, how they're doing in their services, updates on the kids, what they're doing and the relationship, how that looks. The wishes of the child is a super important thing we're putting in the report. If you can put yourself in the perspective of a kid in this situation, they are most likely moved away from their home. They're not living with their parents or their grandparents anymore, if that's where they were placed, if that's where they were when the case opened. They're probably not in the same school, so they're not around their friends anymore. And it's a really scary time for these kids, and they have a lot of different professionals in and out of their life. They may be going to counseling now. They have new teachers. They have new caseworkers, because there's a couple different caseworkers from Children's Services that will be working with them. So we have this one volunteer that is going in and talking to them and asking them what they actually feel and what they want out of the situation. Because things have just happened to them. They've been moved and no one's asked what they've wanted out of that entire situation. So we are there and we are asking, what do you want? We get to tell the judge what you want. And it doesn't mean that you get what you want, but they actually are listening. The judge does care what you want out of this situation. And that makes our kids feel a lot better. So some of the recommendations that our volunteers are putting in that report can pertain to whether they stay with or stay with, I typed that wrong, that's why I'm saying it wrong. Stay with or be removed from their parents, be placed in foster care, permanent adoption. That's kind of the death sentence of our juvenile court system. That's the worst of the worst, and we don't want that to happen. That's when parents can't alleviate that concern, and there's no family members to take in that child, and they're in foster care, and they need permanence. They need to know that this person is going to take care of me for the rest of my life, and this is where I'm going to live. They just can't live in limbo. That creates so much stress on our kids, so they need permanence, and that's when the court will seek PC, where they terminate the parents' rights and they are no longer mom and no longer dad to those kids, and they will be put up for adoption. We can also make recommendations on changes in education, because we're talking to the schools. We know if there needs to be an IEP change, if the kid just wants to be in football. They were taken away from their one school where they, had this position on the football team, and they just really want to get involved in football at their new school. That's something that we can try to get going for them, and something that we can bring up to the court and make sure everyone's aware of, because this is their life, and time is going really slow for them. It may be going fast for us, but if they just want to play football this year in school, we're going to make that happen. Changes in visitation. Many times, again, kids are removed from their parents, and maybe that first hearing, we're not even talking about contact with parents and their kiddos. And that can be devastating for these kids. They don't get to talk to their mom or dad for a month, maybe 3 months, until the next court hearing when we're actually discussing visitation. So that's something the CASA can bring up and really advocate for, that this baby was just taken from the hospital and they really need that bonding time with their parents, so we can be advocating for that. And anything else, again, we're not limited on our recommendations of what we truly think is in that best interest of the kiddo. So once the volunteer's been to court and written that court report on what they think is in, or updating the court, what's going on, and makes their recommendations, what they think is best for the kids, they're going to continue being appointed to the case and continue having that relationship with that child, and be appointed to them. And this process can last up to 2 years. Parents get kind of the max time frame of 2 years to correct that issue before permanent custody may be discussed. So in that 2 years, we want to have that same volunteer appointed to them so they can have that really special relationship with them and trust that adult. Many kids that we're advocating for have not great history with adults, whether that be their parents, teachers, where they just aren't trusting, and now they were ripped away from their family, from other adults. So we want to be a permanent person in their life so that they can trust us, and we can try to do everything that we can for them. We're attending all the court hearings on behalf of the child, because children don't actually get to go to the juvenile court hearings. So our volunteers are representing the children's voice, and that's a really special thing that we get to do. And our volunteers know what to do because they're following Rule 48 guidelines. And I won't get into all that legal mumbo jumbo there, but we created a nice checklist for our volunteers so they can be credible in court. We make sure that they're visiting the child on a regular basis, that they've talked to the teachers, that they've talked to both parents, that they've seen the children interacting with their families, to be able to make a recommendation on if that interaction is positive or negative to the child. We're talking to foster family if that pertains, looking at their medical records. So as you can see, there's a long list that our volunteers are thoroughly investigating to make sure that they are credible in court. So who is a CASA volunteer? Our volunteers have to be 21 years or older and pass a background check that we provide. And it's just, like I said, a regular person in the community. You don't have to have a law degree, a criminal justice degree. You don't even have to have a college degree. We just want really trusting, passionate people that want to protect children. And with that 30-hour training, we tell our potential volunteers that this is a 30-hour interview that we're doing with us to you and you to us. This is not an easy commitment for a lot of people. It's not a weekend helping at a soup kitchen where you feel really good that you made that impact and then you go home. This can be up to a 2-year thing where you're spending a couple hours a week talking to these different people, talking to these kids, traveling to where they might be. They might be in foster care an hour and a half from here. So they're traveling to see these kids. So we need to make sure that our volunteers are committed and that they are safe people for our children to be around. We don't want to traumatize them any further. So again, that 30-hour training, we cover courtroom procedures. Our volunteers actually get to go and watch court hearings with other current volunteers and be able to gain that perspective. We cover effective advocacy techniques, recognizing abuse or neglect, because many times that volunteer has maintained or gained a really great relationship with a kid and they've learned to trust them, and that child will then disclose further abuse that happened to them. So we need to, one, recognize those signs that, hey, there might be something else going on that we need to address with the child, and know what services to recommend from there. Trauma is a huge chapter we cover in our training, because there's not one child that we're advocating for that hasn't been traumatized in one way or another. Even if they weren't, or even if they didn't feel that they were traumatized being removed from their family, going through the situation that was the concern, being removed from their family is a whole nother layer of trauma that was added on to that child. Signs of drug usage, that is a huge number of our cases that we're involved in. I'm sure everyone is aware that there's still a huge drug epidemic that our families are facing, so that's a majority of our cases that our families are involved in. Variety of services offered in the community, and that is ever changing, so our volunteers are continuing their education and being up to date on what new services are offered in the community. Diversity and much, much more. So what can you guys do? What am I asking you guys? Obviously, the number one thing that we're asking is for volunteers. I already said it's really hard to find volunteers, and we tend to get more and more cases as the years go on. There's more families moving to communities. Teachers are able to pick up better on abuse signs and report that to children's services. And there's just more and more stressors, it seems like, for our families. So we tend to have more and more cases and less volunteers for our families, because everyone is so committed and doesn't have the time to volunteer anymore. So we struggle with that. Our spring training, we gained, I want to say, 6 volunteers, which is great, and that was across our 3 counties. And we are hosting our fall volunteer training coming up shortly. But with that, we're probably going to lose that same number of volunteers this year as well, due to people moving, due to health concerns, due to life in general. If they had a new addition to their family, if they just had a lot going on in their lives, we allow our volunteers to hit pause on being a volunteer, because we want them to stay with us forever, but we understand life happens. If you have a surgery coming up, if you have a grandbaby being born, whatever it may be, and you need to take the summer off, you need to take 6 months, you need to take the year, you have to take care of yourself first. So always looking for volunteers, and with us being a nonprofit, we are always looking for people to donate to our organization in order for us to continue doing the awesome work that we are. And I think the most important one is to spread the word about CASA, because, believe it or not, we've been here for 34 years, and most people don't know about us. We get calls every week from people trying to order a taco from our office. We're like, we're not that CASA. We're on CASA. Wow. Order us one too, but that's not us. So just educating the community on our program. And if you have been sitting here listening to me talk about CASA and have thought of someone else that might be a good fit for us, please pass this information along to them. And follow our social media. We're always posting about upcoming trainings, fundraisers, great tips for parents, and really awesome stuff. I may be biased because I run it, but. And then for people that do want to become a volunteer, they can call our Tiffin office, 419-448-1442, or visit our website, casaofssw.org. We have our application on there for people that do want to make that commitment and volunteer for us, or if they just want to learn more, they can learn a lot on our website or just call our office. I'd be happy to talk their ear off. And our volunteer training takes place every April and September. So like I said, we are getting ready for our fall volunteer training. I brought a little flyer. That's going to take place September 3rd at 5 p.m. at our Tiffin CASA office. So we hope to have a bunch of people out. That's not a commitment night. If you just want to learn about CASA, you're more than welcome to stop on out, ask as many questions as you want, and we will go ahead and schedule our training once we have everyone there and make sure it fits with everyone's schedule. So for people that do want to donate to our organization, they can donate through Venmo, a mail-in donation to any of 3 of our offices, or through our website. They can also support us when you shop at Kroger. If you have your Kroger Community Rewards, you can select a nonprofit on there. So money that you're already spending at Kroger a portion of that gets donated to the nonprofit of your choosing. And contribute through upcoming fundraisers. I did want to talk about our Tiffin Zombie Run that's going to be coming up October 19th. It's going to be at Steyer Nature Preserve. We're doing the 5K runner walk portion as well as the 1 mile walking portion. It's a $30 registration and people can participate that way, or we're always looking for zombies. If people want to dress up and be zombies, we'd love to have them. They can find out more on our website or just call that Tiffin office number. And they can also support us through pull tab tickets. We are teamed up with Viaduct, Fatheads, Double Barrel, Belmar, Bears Den, Sauber, Stumble Inn, New Regal, Dina Donna's, and Whistle Stop Deli. So we got quite the number of connections here in the community that those locations are helping us raise money, as well as they're raising money for their restaurant bar as well. So it's a great win-win for all of us, and it's helping people enjoy themselves at that location where they might be winning a little bit of cash. So this is our slogan that we love to use. Every child has a chance. It's you, whether that's talking about CASA to someone you know, whether that's donating to us or volunteering your time. We appreciate you anyway, and you're helping a kiddo in some way. Thank you, guys.
Wow. Michelle, I had so many questions while you were going through there, and you answered them all because you were very thorough. That was very good.
21 Court Street.
Okay, and I know some people were taking notes. I think Kevin is a CASA volunteer.
He is, yeah. Do you want to share a little bit, Kevin?
I remember at the last event up in Fremont, the story of the fire extinguisher inspector came up. Mm-hmm. I'll put you on the spot. I don't know about the need for volunteers. I don't know if you could share how that came about. And
that was our previous board president, Doug Berger. He had came out to the Fremont office to inspect our fire extinguishers. And he was like, what is CASA? I don't know anything about that. So staff up there explained to him what it was, and he was hooked ever since. And he joined the board. He became a non-traditional volunteer. And that is where you don't take a case, but you can help other people on their cases. So they can vent to you about the cases. You can go with them on home visits. You're just not the one going to court and actually advocating, but you're a support person for that volunteer. And he got on the board and eventually became our board president, and he was heavily, heavily involved in our organization. And he unfortunately, unexpectedly passed away this January. And it hit our organization really hard. And his daughter came and spoke at our fundraiser, and we actually got a couple board members from that event that he knew. And because they knew how much he loved our organization, they wanted to be a part of it and keep up his memory that way.
Well, can I come and shake your hand? And
Of course.
Maybe we can get a picture. And
Okay.
we have a little thing right here on the wall. Stand right there. Thank you very much for coming.
Of course.
Very nice presentation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be talking to you probably about being a volunteer, but September 3rd, they'll be at 21 Court Street, or? Okay, at what time?
5 p.m.
5, okay, thank you.
I guess I forgot to update you guys. If you maybe saw construction at our building. It is now complete. We have a new paint job, looks a little bit more mature, and then we have fantastic new doors that look inviting. People didn't know that we had a side door on the side of our building. It kind of just looked like a gated window, and so now it looks like a door. And so now people can use 2 different entrances to come in. So we're super excited about that people are more willing to come in our office, and it's not so scary.
Any other questions or comments from other council members?
Oh, thank you very much, Michelle. It was
Thank you,
awesome.
guys.
Very, very good.
Yeah, thank you for such a thorough and interesting presentation.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much.
And that concludes my report, Madam President.
Okay, Clerk of Council Ann Forrest,
No report tonight, Madam President.
Director of Finance Kathy Kaufman,
No report, Madam President.
Director of Law Zachary Fowler.
Yeah, I do have a report, Madam President. Just wanted to share with you all that was the last week of July. I attended a 2-day seminar at the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association. First day was great because it was all civil and back to basics, and it was a bunch of law directors, and we talked about quite a bit. Couple of things that I'll just mention that we talked about that we'll probably get into more details in the future. Well, one that was recommended that I sort of liked was annual training for council. So kind of like what we did at the end of last year in December, we kind of had a mock thing. It'd be something like that, but it would just be more of a training thing for probably some updates on public records law, ethics, a few of those just kind of typical annual things. Recommendation was that you just treat it like a special meeting, basically, be a public meeting, open, but we would just go through a few things. We can talk about, other things. If you guys have specific topics, Robert's rules, any of those just kind of fun procedural things. The other one that was mentioned that I thought would be good is just looking over your own rules. You guys do have rules for council that are in the codified ordinances that wouldn't be a bad idea to take a review, especially now that you've had some time on council. We could probably look at it, I was thinking like next January, and just, is there anything you want to change? Then we just talked about other basics, executive session. We talked one about abstaining, noise ordinances, all the financing stuff. So lots of good materials out of there. There'll be stuff that, we can talk as things go, but it was a good experience. And just kind of reminder, just some of the stuff we talked about, just that ordinances 48, 49, those need to be taken off the table tonight, so then that way they can get their second reading now that the Planning Commission has considered both the zoning change for the property to be annexed and those zoning ordinance changes that were requested. I think that was it. That's all I have.
Okay. We're now under written communications.
Thank you. We have Mayor's request for legislation, number 24-37, OPWC funding request.
Mayor's request for legislation 24-37 will be assigned to the Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee.
Finance Director's request for legislation, number F24-39, to amend the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the fire department budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation F24-39 is prepared for tonight's meeting as ordinance 24-63.
Finance Director's request for legislation, number 24-40, to amend the budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the street and park budgets.
Finance Director's request for legislation 24-40 has been prepared for tonight's meeting as ordinance 24-64.
And we have the letter from the Planning Commission dated July 16th, 2024, recommending council's approval of ordinance 2024-48 and 2024-49.
This letter will remain on file in the clerk's office.
And last, in the agenda change memo, we have a notice from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for a transfer of a liquor permit from Gay Lanes Incorporated, 747 West Market Street, to Keybold LLC, 172 East Market Street.
And this will also be assigned to the Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee.
And that concludes the written communications.
Thank you. We are now under oral communications. Anyone who would like to speak, if you'd like to introduce yourself, sign in with your name and address, and we'll limit comments to 5 minutes per person. Okay, seeing none, we are now under motions. Yes, Councilmember Horniman.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to remove ordinance number 24-48 from the table.
Okay, there's a motion to remove ordinance 24-48 from the tabled legislation. Councilmember Reister?
I'll second, Madam President.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to remove ordinance 24-48 from tabled legislation. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Horniman.
This is the ordinance to rezone and annex the 79.506 acres of land over in the second ward of the city and such that was discussed by the Planning Commission and their approval. So,
Okay, thank you. Any other, go ahead, Kevin.
I just want to make sure she's okay with reading, or we can make him do it. No? All right.
It's council's choice.
You do good, so.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Just a quick point of information. Is it a roll call vote in that situation, or can it be?
Yeas and nays is fine.
Okay.
You could do voice vote, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of removing ordinance 2024-48 from the table, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Sorry, Councilmember Kaler.
Madam President, I would also move to remove ordinance 2024-49 from tabled legislation and move it back to pending legislation.
Okay, Councilmember Snee?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to remove ordinance 2024-49 from tabled legislation. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Kaler?
Madam President, I believe that this was tabled to, because our law director felt that the ordinance that we had considered was a bit vague. And I think since that time, Mr. Fowler has removed some of the vagueness from that proposed ordinance, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if I may. Well, it was tabled because it had to go to Planning Commission. That was the reason for the tabling. And now because of the charter, we got to take it back off the table. But I can say now, I was going to say when it got read that as I sent the letter to you all and the Planning Commission, there was, I just requested an amendment about the vagueness and to remove some of that regarding the residential infill development standards that are being proposed. I hope that clarifies. That's.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of removing ordinance 2024-49 from tabled legislation, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any other motions? Okay. We are now under resolutions and ordinances.
We have no resolutions tonight. I'll continue with the ordinances. Ordinance number 2024-48, introduced by Scott Herneman, an ordinance zoning 79.506 acres of land, more or less, owned by David J. Wagner and Alan T. Wagner, trustees, and Annie Forrest and Claire M. Forrest Jr., co-executors of the estate of Martha Ann Forrest in the second ward of the city as Zone M2 Heavy Industrial District, compatible with adjacent land use and meeting requirements of the Tiffin City Charter and the codified ordinances.
This is the second reading of ordinance 2024-48.
Ordinance number 2024-49, introduced by John Kaler, an ordinance to enact residential infill development standards in the zoning code and amend sections 1167.03, 1169.03, 1181.01, and 1181.05 in the zoning code.
This is the second reading of ordinance 2024-49. Yes.
Yeah, if I may, just for sake of clarification, I would just ask for a motion, it can either be now or the next reading, but to adopt those amendments that I sent you all. It's already formatted and ready for Ann's purposes, but whether you want to do it now or next time, but I think it would just clarify the record that you're adopting those changes.
Okay. Okay. Councilor Reesner?
I can make that motion to, or move to make that amendment to what the law director just stated about those amendments.
Okay. And is that's for 49, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second? Do we need to be more specific with what those amendments are, or is that?
You can just say essentially they're the amendments proposed by the law director.
Okay, fantastic. Councilmember Kaler?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adopt the amendments proposed by the law director for ordinance 2024-49. Is there any discussion? Same situation, should I do a roll call vote in this situation? Okay.
Yes.
I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
Kaler.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
And Thacker.
Yes. The amendments passed with a vote of 6-0. Okay.
Ordinance number 2024-59, introduced by Kevin Reesner. An ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the capital improvements budget.
I think we missed 55.
Oh. Yes. The paper. Wait, where are they at? Okay. Okay, ordinance 2024-55, an ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the police budget and Parks Department budget.
This is the second reading of ordinance 2024-55. Councilor Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that council suspend its three reading rule in the immediate passage of ordinance 2024-55.
Okay, is there a second? Councilmember Horniman?
I'll second that motion, Madam President.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilor Reesner?
Point of information is this is the finance director's request that they received for a police training presentation, a $20,000 grant from the Tiffin Community Foundation. And then there's a Parks Department skating rink in this too.
Okay, is there any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the roll for the suspension first. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
Kaler.
Yes.
Joan, I'm sorry. Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
And Thacker.
Yes, the suspension passes with a vote of 6-0. I will now ask the clerk to call the roll on the passage of ordinance 24-55.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
Kaler.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
And Thacker.
Yes. Ordinance 2024-55 passes with a vote of 6-0.
Now, ordinance 2024-59, introduced by Kevin Reesner. An ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the capital improvements budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-59. Councilman Reesner?
Thank you, Madam President. I move that City Council suspend its three reading rule and for the immediate passage of ordinance 2024-59.
Okay, is there a second? Councilmember Hayes?
I second that motion.
There's a motion second to suspend City Council's three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 2024-59, and I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the suspension.
Councilmember Hayes,
Yes.
Herniman,
Yes.
Kaler,
Yes.
Reesner,
Yes.
Snee,
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes, the suspension passes with a vote of 6-0. I will now ask the clerk to call the roll on the passage of this ordinance.
Councilmember Hayes,
Yes.
Herniman,
Yes.
Kaler,
Yes.
Reesner,
Yes.
Snee,
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes. Ordinance 2024-59 passes with a vote of 6-0.
Ordinance number 2024-60, introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to accept a federal emergency management agency grant for the purchase of protective equipment and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-60.
Ordinance number 2024-61, introduced by Scott Herniman, an ordinance naming the Ella Street Bridge for rich folk.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-61.
Ordinance number 2024-62, introduced by Scott Herniman, an ordinance accepting annexation to the city of Tiffin of a parcel of land being 79.276 acres, more or less, in Section 7, Township 2 North, Range 15 East of Clinton Township, on the petition of the owners of said real estate.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-62 in one moment, Ann.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to,
I thought we were supposed to have a suspension on ordinance 2024-60, but I was waiting for
Yeah,
somebody to make a motion.
have that down.
And so in this situation, are we able to do it under other business, or is it kind of like too late, so sad?
yeah, we've kind of moved on.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was just going to make a comment on 61, but I'll save it for the next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Ann. Thank you.
Okay. Get back to where I was. Now, ordinance number 2024-63, introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the fire department budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-63.
Ordinance 2024-64, introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the street budget and park budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-64. Councilor Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for immediate passage of ordinance 24-64, suspending city council's reading rule.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Councilmember Horniman?
I'll second that motion, Madam President.
Okay, there is a motion second to suspend City Council's third reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 2024-64. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on the suspension.
Councilmember Hayes,
Yes.
Herniman,
Yes.
Kaler,
Yes.
Reesner,
Yes.
Snee,
Yes.
and Thacker.
Yes. The suspension passes with a vote of 6-0. I will now ask the clerk to call the roll on the passage of ordinance 2024-64.
Councilmember Hayes,
Yes.
Herniman,
Yes.
Kaler,
Yes.
Reesner,
Yes.
Snee,
Yes.
and Thacker.
Yes. Ordinance 2024-64 passes with a vote of 6-0.
Ordinance number 2024-65, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept an amended sewer easement and take all actions necessary to acquire easement rights for real property located at 11 India Lane.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-65.
Ordinance number 2024-66, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker, an ordinance responding to petition number 2024-03, vacating the alley off of Front Street running east-west between lot number 285 of Hemmings Resurvey and lot number 409 of the western addition to the city of Tiffin in the 4th Ward of the city of Tiffin, Ohio.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-66.
Ordinance number 2024-67, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker, an ordinance to amend Chapter 902 of the codified ordinances.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-67.
Ordinance number 2024-69, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker, an ordinance to amend section 905.09 of the codified ordinances.
This is the first reading of this ordinance.
Ordinance number 2024-69, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker, an ordinance to amend chapter 936 of the codified ordinances.
This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-69.
And that concludes the legislation.
Okay, we're now under other business.
Yeah.
Law Director?
Yeah, if I may, I know, I think you'd like to come back to, is that ordinance 60?
Yes.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to take a look, if I can give you an answer. You can handle other stuff. But
then-
before we conclude, yeah, I'll try and give you
Okay.
an answer here.
Okay, so I also need to schedule a street sidewalk sewers meeting at some point. So why don't we take this time to do that now? Is the committee able to meet next Monday in the evening sometime? I can meet anytime after 5:30.
That's fine. 5:30 is fine with me.
5:30, okay. Does that work for you, Mayor?
Next Monday, the 12th?
Yes.
Yes, that should be fine.
Nick, are you able to meet at that time as well? Monday at 5:30 next week?
Yes, that'll work, thank you.
And then my other question for this committee before I announce the meeting, does anybody see a need to request a hearing for the Ohio Division of Liquor Control transfer of liquor permit? No? Okay. Then I will ask the clerk to send a response that we are not requesting a hearing. Thank you.
If I may, what was the time for that meeting? I didn't catch that.
5:30,
On what day?
Monday.
Monday?
Would that work?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to announce a street sidewalk sewers committee meeting. The purpose is to discuss mayor's request for legislation 24-37, OPWC funding request, and any other business that comes before that committee. Do you have an
Yeah,
answer?
if I may. So you don't have a hard and fast rule here, so if you'd like to, I mean, it's been read, it doesn't need to be read again, but if you'd like to bring it back up for a motion and consideration, I would say let's get it done, so that way you don't have to do a special meeting. I think city administration would like to move on this
Yeah, there's a time limit, right?
request. There is.
Okay.
It's a 30-day, so we would have to accept the award really before August 11th.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Councilman Reesner.
I'd like to motion that, I move that city council suspend its reading rule and immediately pass ordinance 2024-60.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilman Horniman?
I'd like to second that motion, Madam President.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to suspend City Council's three reading rule for ordinance 2024-60. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll first on the suspension.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
Kaler.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
The suspension, yes, the suspension passes with a vote of 6-0. I'll ask the clerk to call the the roll on the emergency.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
Kaler.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes, the emergency passes with a vote of 6-0. I will now ask the clerk to call the roll on the passage of this ordinance.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
Kaler.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
And Thacker.
Yes, the ordinance passes with a vote of 6-0. I should probably also introduce that hearing, or should I leave that up to President Boyle for her return? Okay. Let me pull that date up. Okay, I also have, I would like to announce a public hearing to review petition number 2024-03, vacating the alley off of Front Street running east-west between lot number 285 of Hemming Resurvey and lot number 409 of the Western Addition to the city of Tiffin in the 4th Ward of the city of Tiffin, Ohio, for August 19th, regular city council meeting, immediately following the invocation of Pledge of Allegiance. Any other business?
I do have something that I would like to add, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I've had a lot of calls questioning our contract with the Rumpke. And so I just did some digging, and I thought I would just pass out some information to you so that you would be aware, just in case some resident calls you and has a question about their trash pickup and or the Rumpke service that's contracted by the city. So that way you'll be aware and you'll be able to answer questions. I was half expecting someone to come to city council tonight and present their case because they called and had a complaint and a question. And I invited them to come to city council. They didn't show up tonight, but I still have this information. I just think it's valuable for you to have. If you've been through all of the ordinances, you've probably read this already, but I have a copy of the agreement and a copy of the ordinance just for your information. Just so that you'll be informed if you happen to run across that question from a resident or if we have to act on it in city council at any time soon.
Okay. Any further business for this committee? Yes.
Just, I got a comment on the ordinance 24-67, which got its first reading tonight. I don't know, I've been trying to talk around, get some more information here as these are out, and I'm wondering if it's going to stifle expansion with some of these carriers. Our constituents need to have choices with their internet carriers, but I don't know if we have too strict of guidelines, and it's penalizing smaller companies that don't have the money to do the bonding and so forth. And is it, I just kind of want to see if we can revisit before it reaches that third reading, if possible. Just for just for that one, the 902 codified ordinances. See if there's some edits maybe that could be made, and then I could get them together and maybe have a possible amendment or something to the.
Yeah, could you maybe like bring back specific
Yeah, I'll put
items that you're concerned about and
together, yeah.
Okay. Any further business? Seeing none, we're adjourned at 8:03.